but I'm getting ahead of myself. That wasn't in the half-hour version. The half-hour version was not very violent at all. There was a lot of action in it, and it was well done. Jeanette Nolan was in it, who later came with John McIntyre to head up the ranch on the main version of the Virginian. And then 3 years later, it was all forgotten, and I went under contract to Universal Studios. And at that time, they put me under contract, and then they started screen testing me for the Virginian. And I had no idea they had that in mind, and whatever happened, they kept screen testing me and kept telling me to lose weight. And in 30 days, I lost 30 pounds, and that apparently was enough weight off for them. So they informed Doug and McClure and I that we had the parts of the Virginian and Trampas on the Friday night before the Monday morning that we started to shoot the show. So that's how it worked. And 9 years later, we were done. And it was a great ride and a wonderful thing to have a chance to do and have the opportunity to do. And I'm very grateful for it. Now I was grateful then. I'm still grateful.
Think about that. 9 years. I think about Doug McClure a lot. And
I do too.
Man, what a loss. And you worked with him. Tell us a little bit. And by the way, we're going to open up the phone lines now at 888-909-1050. That's toll free 888-909-1050. We're also taking your emails. All you have to do is go to VinceDaniels.com, and we have them coming in here this morning, including a nice Happy Father's Day wish for you, Jim. I'll read to you in a second.
Oh.
But I want to ask you about Doug McClure. I want you to talk a little bit about him, the kind of a man he was, both professionally and personally off camera.
Well, he was a man you could depend on. I never don't think I ever met a guy that was more capable of doing whatever he was asked to do, and he had unique qualities. He would walk into a room and everyone in the room would smile. It was almost impossible not to smile if you looked at Doug McClure, because he radiated goodwill and radiated his mischievousness and radiated his strength, and he just brought a presence onto the screen that was impossible to ignore, and we became best friends, and I guess I talked to him 3 times a week for 30 years, and I sure do miss him. He was left a big hole in my life when he passed, and of course he passed much too young at the age of 56, and we wish he was still around. He'd be so delighted with the new interest in the show and the fact that there's so many different venues around the country that have asked for us to be there, for the whole cast to be there, and for me in particular to be there, and I'm sure Doug would have enjoyed the same popularity and would have loved it. He would have been really happy about it.
Well, yeah, he just, I think about, just the fact that and a lot of people don't understand that haven't read the Owen Wister novel, that, boy, did they take some creative license with the Trampas character.
Well, and with the Steve character that Gary Clark played. Both of those characters in the original book didn't last till the end of the book. Trampas was killed in a gunfight with a Virginian, and of course Steve even though he's a good friend of the Virginians, he had to hang him because he was a cattle rustler. And in those days, that was the sentence, and there was no appeal. If you stole somebody's cattle or horses, you were hung. When they caught you, they hung you from the tallest tree they could find, because it was such a terrible. In the settling in the West, your animals were so crucial to your survival. If a man went out the West and had a horse, and the horse could pull a plow and also ride under saddle and get things done around the ranch, that was an invaluable piece of equipment. And if somebody stole that horse, the man couldn't survive. So hence the harsh sentencing. And also, if he stole your cattle, he was stealing this. In the cattle business, if you could successfully raise a herd of cattle now or in the past, in the period of history that we're referring to, if you can successfully raise a herd of cattle, you're a magician. You've brought them through disease and sickness and blizzards and hail and lightning storms, and finally brought them to market to provide food for the millions of people that want to eat beef, and myself included. And it's really a very touchy thing. Being a cattle rancher is a very difficult and it's a profession that's fraught with danger and difficulty. And so if someone steals your cattle, they've stolen something that's not only part of an asset of your estate, but it's a piece of your soul, you know.
Got a message here for you here, Jim. An email coming in from a lady named Ellen Touton. It says, "Hey, living all over the country, born in New York, raised in Oregon, living in Texas now. By the way, where are you? You in Houston this morning?
I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm home in Houston. Yes, I am.
And then the honoring of Virginia by the show. Here's a question. It's kind of funny the way it's put. These two sentences are put together. Where do you choose to be buried? And Happy Father's Day."
Well, thanks for the Happy Father's Day. And where I'm buried, I'm afraid is going to be somebody else's decision. I'll be out of my hands at that time. I am not now, but I plan to become an organ donor. My wife is an organ donor as well. And at the end of that process, if they want any part of me, which may be doubtful at the time, I'll probably be cremated and maybe have my ashes scattered somewhere on rangeland and maybe in the Catalina Channel and maybe in Galveston.
Right, but we don't want to think about
wherever
that.
Wherever they're scattered won't really matter to me at the time.
No. Alice, you're on the DNA radio show.
What's that?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Alice wants to talk to you here, Jim.
Oh, okay. What's the name again?
Alice.
Alice,
I'm getting a lot of static on this phone, Jim. I'm sorry. But I talked to you a long time ago.
What was that?
I'm calling back because I wanted to thank you very much for the DVDs and your autographs.
Uh-huh.
Your autographs. I bought the first season and the beginning of part 2.
Okay.
And they're wonderful. I'm working my way through them.
Oh, that's great.
And they're beautiful.
I hope you enjoy them very much.
I do. And I have a couple of questions for you.
Certainly.
When all of you worked really closely together, and were you kind of like a family when you worked with your fellow, Trampus and Steve and Betsy?
Yes, it was.
Kind
it was very much
really
a family.
Close? Pardon?
It was very much a family.
And I remember in The Lady of White Wings,
yes,
Lee J. Cobb said he mentioned you and Steve and Trampus as being really close and almost like brothers.
Yes.
And I loved your line. You said most of the time. So that's
most of the time. Well, that's
yeah.
Even brothers are brothers most of the time.
But I wanted to know when Gary Clark no longer was on.
Yes.
Something happened to the show because
I think we all felt the loss of Gary Clark. He was an integral part of the show, and we were all very, very sorry to see him go.
I know.
I never, quite frankly, I never really knew the reason why he was no longer on the show. I think it was a mutual decision between Gary and the studio, but I've never really gotten to the bottom of that, nor is it any of my business. But we were very, very, very sorry to see him go. He was a wonderful asset to the show, and he was so bright and physically he could do anything. He climbed ropes. He was a gymnast. He balled over a 10-foot fence. He could do all kinds of stuff that Doug and I just looked at each other and shook our heads. He was so agile and able to do all this kind of thing, and he was a very fine actor.
Yeah,
he was excellent in anything he was asked to do.
Well, it was interesting to me because as I watched these in order, you notice there's a change. But how did you and the cast deal with it?